Something serious is happening in Nigeria's politics right now. And many people are not talking about it enough. Early yesterday, Peter Obi made a strong statement on his X, Twitter, page. Not a normal political message. Not a campaign message. This one sounded like a warning. He said he was informed that a respected religious leader, Sheikh Ahmad Tijjani Umar, was arrested by authorities shortly after hosting him in Kaduna on Sunday. Not long after the visit, the man was picked up. And this immediately changed the political conversation across the country. Political observers, supporters, and even neutral citizens began to pay attention because the situation raised serious concerns about political freedom and freedom of association. Peter Obi did not stay quiet. He reacted quickly. And his words were very direct and very serious. He did not joke about the matter, and he did not try to reduce the situation. Instead, he spoke like someone who believed something was wrong and needed to be addressed immediately. He said this situation shows a very troubling state of the nation and democracy. He explained that freedom of speech and freedom of movement are now being threatened. He also said that citizens and people who are seen as political opponents are now facing harassment and unnecessary persecution. Those are not small words in politics. When a political leader starts talking about harassment, persecution, and threats to freedom, it means the situation is becoming dangerous for democracy. It means the problem is no longer normal political disagreement. It begins to look like a struggle over rights and freedom. Peter Obi then made another strong statement. He said this cannot be allowed to continue. That sentence was short, but it carried a very strong message. It showed that he was not only complaining, but also warning that the situation could become worse if nothing is done. He went further to talk about democracy itself. He said this country must defend freedom and free speech because they are the hallmarks of every democratic society. In other words, without freedom of speech, democracy cannot survive. Without freedom of movement, democracy cannot survive. Without citizens being able to support any political leader they want, democracy becomes weak. He also said suppression and intimidation of people who disagree can never stand in a democratic society. This part of his statement was very important because it sounded like he was speaking not only for himself, but for all Nigerians, regardless of political party. His message sounded like a call for fairness, a call for rule of law, and a call for respect for citizens' rights. He then called on those who are trying to undermine the already fragile democracy to stop and apply the rule of law and democratic principles when dealing with citizens. The use of the words fragile democracy also caught the attention of many people. Calling a country's democracy fragile means it is not strong, not stable, and can easily be damaged if leaders and institutions do not act carefully and responsibly. This statement quickly started spreading online. Many people began to discuss it. Some people supported him. Some people disagreed. Some people asked questions. But one thing was clear, the statement had started a national conversation. Political analysts began to talk about what this could mean for the political environment. Supporters began to express concern. Critics began to defend the government. But the discussion kept growing because the issue touched something very important in any country, and that is freedom. At the center of everything was one simple issue: can a citizen openly support a politician without fear? That question alone is powerful enough to create a serious political debate in any democracy. And that is why this situation is no longer just a small political incident. It is now a national political discussion that may have bigger consequences in the future. The situation continued to generate reactions across the country as more people began to understand the political meaning behind the arrest and the statement that followed. What initially looked like a small incident quickly became part of a larger national discussion about democracy, political tolerance, and the rights of citizens to associate freely with political leaders of their choice. After the statement released by Peter Obi, many political observers said the issue was no longer about one religious leader or one visit in Kaduna. They said the issue had now entered the wider conversation about how politics is being managed in the country and how opposition figures and their supporters are being treated in the current political climate. In his statement, Peter Obi stressed that Nigeria must remain a country where people can speak freely, move freely, and support any political movement without fear of intimidation or harassment. He said these freedoms are not optional in a democracy but are necessary for democracy to survive and grow. According to him, when citizens begin to feel unsafe because of their political opinions or associations, then democracy itself is in danger. Political analysts who reacted to the development said his statement was carefully written but very strong in meaning. They pointed out that he did not insult anyone directly, but his message clearly suggested that the current political environment was becoming tense and uncomfortable for opposition supporters in some parts of the country. Some analysts also noted that this situation may increase political tension between supporters of Peter Obi and supporters of the current administration led by Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Nigerian politics has always been competitive, but situations involving arrests, political accusations, and public statements about democracy often increase political pressure and public debate. Meanwhile, the arrest of Sheikh Ahmad Tijjani Umar itself also became a separate topic of discussion, especially in northern political and religious circles. Many people began asking questions about the reason for the arrest, the timing, and whether the visit of a political figure should be connected to any legal action unless there were other issues involved. Some legal experts who spoke on political programs said that in a democracy, association with politicians is not a crime, and hosting a political figure should not automatically lead to arrest unless there is clear evidence of a legal violation unrelated to politics. They explained that democracy allows citizens to meet politicians, support politicians, criticize politicians, and participate in political discussions without fear. The situation also started gaining attention on social media, where many Nigerians began debating the issue from different political positions. Supporters of Peter Obi argued that the arrest showed growing political intolerance and misuse of authority. On the other hand, supporters of the government argued that the arrest may have been based on security or legal reasons that were not yet fully explained to the public. This division in public opinion is very common in Nigerian politics, where almost every major political issue quickly divides the country into different opinion groups. However, what made this situation different was that the discussion was not only about politics but also about democracy, rights, and freedom of speech. Peter Obi also emphasized in his statement that Nigeria's democracy is already fragile and should not be weakened further by actions that may look like suppression or intimidation of political opponents. The word fragile again appeared in political discussions because it suggests that Nigeria's democratic system still needs protection, fairness, and strong institutions to survive long-term. Political commentators also pointed out that statements like this are not only meant for the public but also for the international community, political observers, human rights organizations, and democratic institutions that monitor political freedom in developing democracies around the world. When political leaders begin to speak publicly about threats to democracy, it often attracts attention beyond the country itself. As the discussions continued, many Nigerians began to look at the situation from a broader perspective, asking whether the country's political environment was becoming more aggressive, more sensitive, and less tolerant of opposition activities as the country moves closer to future political contests and elections. For now, the situation remains a developing political issue, and many people are waiting to see whether there will be an official explanation, a release, or further political reactions from government officials or other political leaders in the country. The political atmosphere remains tense, and this issue has added another layer to the ongoing national political conversation. As the situation continues to unfold, many Nigerians are watching quietly and carefully. They are not just looking at the arrest alone, but at what it could mean for the future of politics in the country. When political tension starts rising slowly, it is usually a sign that bigger political battles are coming. Many people now believe that the political atmosphere is gradually changing. Statements are becoming stronger. Reactions are becoming faster. And political camps are becoming more sensitive. What happened in Kaduna may look like a small event today, but in politics, small events sometimes become very big turning points later. What is happening now is no longer just about one statement or one arrest. The situation has slowly developed into a wider political conversation about power, democracy, and how political opposition is treated in the country today. Many political watchers believe moments like this are very important because they reveal the true state of a nation's democracy, not during elections, but during normal political activities. Elections happen once in a few years, but democracy is tested every single day by how leaders, institutions, and security agencies treat ordinary citizens and political opponents. After the statement released by Peter Obi, the conversation shifted from the arrest itself to the larger issue of political freedom. Many people began to ask whether Nigeria is becoming a place where political association could bring problems for citizens, or whether this was just an isolated incident that would pass with time. These questions are important because politics in a democracy should not create fear among citizens. People should be able to support any candidate, attend political meetings, host political figures, and express their opinions without worrying about intimidation or punishment. That is one of the foundations of democratic systems around the world. Observers also started looking at the political environment under the current administration led by Bola Ahmed Tinubu. In every country, the government in power is always judged not only by economic performance or infrastructure, but also by how it handles opposition, criticism, and political competition. Some analysts say strong democracies are not measured by how the government treats supporters, but by how the government treats critics and opponents. If critics can speak freely and opposition figures can move freely, then democracy is considered healthy. But if critics begin to feel pressure or fear, then people start worrying about the direction of the political system. This is why the statement released by Peter Obi attracted so much attention. It was not just a complaint about one incident. It sounded like a warning about the direction of the political environment. When he mentioned that Nigeria's democracy is fragile, many people took that statement very seriously because fragile means something that can easily break if not handled carefully. Political tension in any country usually starts slowly. First, it begins with strong statements. Then accusations and counter-accusations begin. Then political camps become more divided. Supporters begin to defend their leaders strongly, while opponents become more vocal and more critical. Over time, the political atmosphere becomes tense, even before any election period begins. Nigeria has experienced political tension many times in the past, so many older political observers are always quick to notice early signs of political conflict. They watch statements, arrests, political movements, alliances, and public reactions very carefully because they understand that politics often changes slowly before it changes suddenly. Another important part of this situation is public perception. In politics, what people believe is sometimes more powerful than what actually happened. If many citizens begin to believe that political freedom is reducing, then trust in institutions begins to drop. When trust drops, political tension rises. When political tension rises, the political environment becomes unpredictable. This is why situations like this are usually handled very carefully in stable democracies. Governments often try to avoid actions that may look like political intimidation, while opposition leaders try to avoid actions that may look like political provocation. Both sides usually try to control the political temperature to prevent unnecessary tension in the country. But Nigeria's political environment has always been very competitive and very emotional. Politics in Nigeria is not just about policies and governance. It is also about loyalty, identity, influence, and power. Because of this, even small political events can quickly become national issues. Right now, many Nigerians are simply watching and waiting. They are waiting to see if there will be more arrests, more statements, or more political reactions. They are watching political leaders, security agencies, and government officials. Everyone is observing the situation carefully. Because sometimes, in politics, one event is not just one event. Sometimes it is the beginning of a bigger political shift. Sometimes it is the beginning of new alliances. Sometimes it is the beginning of stronger opposition. Sometimes it is the beginning of political confrontation. And sometimes, it is the moment that changes the political conversation of a country completely. For now, the situation remains a developing political issue, but it has already achieved one thing. It has started a serious conversation about democracy, freedom, and political tolerance in Nigeria. And once a country starts having that conversation, the political landscape slowly begins to change, whether people notice it immediately or not. The coming weeks will be very important. Not because of speeches. Not because of political rallies. But because of actions. In politics, actions always speak louder than statements. People will be watching what the government does next, what opposition leaders say next, and how institutions respond to situations like this. Many Nigerians are now paying closer attention to political events, even those who were not interested in politics before. Situations like this often wake people up and make them start asking questions about leadership, democracy, and the future of the country. Politics is slowly entering a new phase. The tension is quiet, but it is there. The statements are calm, but they are strong. And the political atmosphere is slowly becoming more serious.